Welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast, presented by Shadified Salon and Barbershop. And our guest in the waiting has been there the last few times here, but this is season 6, our premiere episode. We are
Wow.
kicking off for another season, and you are our first guest of the year, Staff. But before we get to you, let's get to our co-host, Sonny Sakan. Sonny, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you guys?
I'm good. I'm good, and it's good to have you back and starting off a new season. We still got Clay, we still got Rupper, we still got Brody, but Rupper and Brody, their kids are in WHL camps right now, and Clay Vanderham is in Indianapolis, so he is working away. It's busy times, but and our guest in the waiting, and he's back with us this year, and we're very excited to have the color commentator for the Edmonton Oilers, and he is the host of Oilers Now, which is a new time slot from 4 to 6 starting next week on 6:30 Ched. We'd like to welcome Bob Stauffer. Staff, how's it going?
Josh, Sonny, good. How are you guys doing?
Good. We're good. We are really good. Obviously, great to see Leon Draisaitl sign his contract extension. The team is shaping into form. Day one of on ice camp is started today, and Sonny's so this is Sonny's first NHL guest. We've done some guests with some other people in the past, so this is his first guest that we've had on the NHL side for Sonny. So excited for him for that. But I do want to get to something real quick before we get into things. And I appreciate what you said yesterday, Stoff, on Oilers Now for Ethan Freeborn. He had three
Yeah.
surgeries today. He is doing well. He is fighting as best he can, and he is. It's going to be a long road, but we are all thinking of him. I know your counterparts there at the rink today, Ryan Rashog, Louis DeBrusque, and Jack Michaels did a nice little video for him today. I reached out to Rashog, and he sent one in, and you gave a nice tribute to him on that Oilers Now. So we are thinking of Ethan. There is a GoFundMe that is on now. That is on Twitter. You guys can find that on Twitter, and it's in our link in on Instagram as well too. So if you guys want to donate to the family, you're more than happy to do that. But definitely thinking of Ethan, right, Stoff? These.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you sent me the information on that, we did a little bit of research. So, our hearts go out to Ethan and his family, and he's got a major battle in his hand, and he's going to need people's help. And that's the one thing about oil country, and it gets reinforced with the Edmonton Oilers Community Foundation. Just how engaged and how much people care about each other around here. So, best of luck to Ethan.
Yeah, no, it was good. And Chris Cuthbert reached out too, and he was in touch with Jamie Cartmill with the Edmonton Oilers on something too for that family. So
Okay.
see what your organization does. But Sonny, we'll toss over to you. Your first guest is an NHL hockey legend here in
Well, that's a
Stauffer.
myth, but anyways.
I'll throw it over to you, Sonny. You can take it away and have some fun with Staff here.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the conversation here. Thanks for the time, Bob. So the Oilers backtrack a couple months. We're one game short, and then of course there's some changes that happen. So the outs, McLeod, CC, uh, Broberg, and Holloway. Is there a player that you think is going to hurt more? And then the counter side to that, with all these names that are coming in and the PTOs, is there a player whose name you're most intrigued by coming into camp and coming into the season with this group?
Sonny, it's interesting. A couple things. I think Edmonton lost some speed, right? Like McLeod can skate, he can transport the puck. Fogel, had a good season last year, 20 goals season. He moves with pace. And then Dylan Holloway was coming, and that was clear in the playoffs when he scored the 5 goals. So I'm a little bit concerned about Edmonton's pace, specifically in the bottom six. So I think they're going to miss that a little bit. And the reality is they've upgraded their top six with the additions of Skinner and Arvidsson to play the flanks along Leon Draisaitl. But I am a little bit concerned. Edmonton's got the oldest team in the NHL, and I like speed, and I like guys that have dimension. And I've talked to some people around the organization, and people have different perspectives. But that's one of the things that I'm concerned about is I think they might miss a little bit of that speed that they had up front. They could kind of come at you with different lines when they played. Maybe McLeod on the third line and Holloway on the fourth. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I'm a little concerned about, the penalty kill was awesome in the playoffs. And in the end, Broberg and CC were the killers in the final series. Desharnais, during the course of the first, I guess, 2.5 series until before Paul Coffey brought in Broberg for Darnay. But the bottom line is there's no Darnay, there's no Broberg, and there's no Ceci on right side defense and as options. And of course, Broberg's a lefty that played the right side. So I'm a little concerned, speed up front and maybe penalty killing on the right tee, which brings us to the player that I think has the best chance to make an impact that's new, and that's Ty Emerson. I just, I think that we might be looking at a guy that plays 19 minutes a game for Edmonton. Um, he is a right shot. He was paired today with Darnell Nurse. He has history with Chris Knobloch. So to answer your question about who might make the biggest impact, I mean, you could argue Skinner and Arvidsson in the top six, but the roles are different and the areas are different. Like if Emerson kills it here, it changes the narrative of maybe what Edmonton does with that accrued cap space during the season. So for me, Emerson's going to be the player to watch in preseason.
Sure. All the underlying numbers with him and what he's done in the AHL are super encouraging. So hopefully playing with someone of Doc's caliber brings that out. In the bottom six, the loss of speed is like, it's evident. I've read a number of reporters talking about the battle for a 4C. Do you see, someone really challenging a Derek Ryan, a guy like Hamlin or Peterson that has that speed, or
I think the coach likes Hamlin. Hamlin got about 30 games in last year. Chris Knobloch, he played him a lot. I think James Hamlin's on the right side of the puck. Basically, Lane Peterson was kind of signed to replace what they thought Noah Phillip was going to be because Noah took the year off. I think the long-term answer is Noah Phillip, but it might occur after we get back from the Four Nations Cup. Like he's got to play some games because he didn't play last year. I talked to Noah today. Absolutely, I think Lane Peterson and James Hamlin can compete against Derek Ryan for the 4C position. I think at this stage in Derek's career, he's probably a better right wing than he is a center. I think that if he has to play center against really good teams, like it's an amazing story. He's played over 500 games in the league. He didn't get in the league until he was 29. Like it's pretty rare when that happens. So I think Derek is a guy that can move around from right wing to center. Peterson for me has got to be in the mix, and so does Hamlin. And it would not surprise me if Philp maybe got 4 preseason games and Peterson and Hamlin got 5. I could see both guys getting that much work. And remember, the most they can play is 7, right? Because we've got a split squad game against Calgary. So I do think that's a valid point. Like, but Colson's clearly going to get an opportunity at minimum, fourth line left wing to start. And I think Perry, is going to be the fourth line right wing to start out of the gate. And both those guys can move up if other guys aren't going. There is another wild card in the formation of the lines. Like based on today, McDavid with Nugent Hopkins and Hyman. That was basically their first line most of last year. We talked about, Jeff Skinner and Arvidsson flanking Leon, and then reuniting Henrique with Janmark and Brown. They can always slide Nugent Hopkins in a 3C position. They can always move Henrique to the wing to maybe have a little bit more balance, lines 1, 2, and 3. But they might also have a really dominant top. And here's there is another wild card with the top 6. They just moved Nugent Hopkins to center and play Draisaitl on left wing with McDavid and Hyman go with the super line. Like if you have that line, you had 3 of the top 12 goal scoring players in the NHL over the last 3 years playing together. So lots of options, but I agree with you. The battle for 4C in training camp, I think it's going to be one that lasts all season long. But I think at the end of the day, Noah Philp may provide an internal solution, so maybe Edmonton doesn't have to trade for that at some point during the year.
Interesting. What do you make of the PTOs with Hoffman and Weatherby? Think that Hoffman you just mentioned what we can do in the top 6. It seems like he's a kind of guy that if he's not there, I've never seen him in a strong role position in the bottom 6.
Yeah, I think you're well aware. He's a shooter, right? Like he can score. He's got 5 or 6 20-goal seasons. That's one thing Ottawa did well is they drafted guys late. They got him in the 5th and Stone in the 6th round. Like those guys were, they far exceeded their draft slot. I expect Hoffman to play 2 of the first 3 games. Okay. And Weatherby is he might get a couple of those games as well out of the gate. And I think part of the reason why that, there's an opportunity for those players, they have NHL experience. I believe the last time I checked the rules, you have to have at least 8 guys that are considered NHL vets in your lineup for each preseason game. So that helps a little bit. There's also an opportunity, like maybe they kick the door in too. We'll have to wait and see. So I think it's partially like Robbie Yarvente walked past Jason Gregor and myself today, and it was pretty clear when we saw him that he was not going to be able to get going here early in camp. Brady Stonehouse, who the Oilers signed last year out of a rookie tournament in Penticton, rehabbing an injury as well. So there's a couple of guys there that aren't going to be able to, of course, Evander Kane, who we know is going to get surgery, I don't know, the next 48 hours or whatever. Maybe he's already got it. So they're down a couple forwards, and that's part and parcel, I think, to why there were some opportunities there. And we'll see what these guys do. I mean, maybe they surprise. Whether it be a couple of years ago, played about 50 games with San Jose, and Hoffman was also in San Jose last season. Isn't the same player that he once was, but maybe it's, if you're on a team that can't get the puck up the ice, it's tougher to look good if you spend a lot of time in your D zone. So I think there's an opportunity for both players, but part of the reason why I think that opportunity happens is because there were some injuries in Edmonton.
Makes sense. Connor Brown for me is a player I'm excited to see. I feel like the
Why?
playoff. Well, the playoffs, I think he started to scratch at what he was capable of. Those injuries are very difficult to come back
Yeah.
from. The confidence, the speed, and I think if he can sustain that throughout the season, and I don't know why he wouldn't. I think that's another guy that you could throw into that top six, but definitely a huge asset on the third line. How's he looked so far in camp?
Well, I think he's way further. Like, he tore his ACL,
Hmm.
played like 4 games, was it 3 or 4 games a couple of years ago? It's a long road back for that player. And some people think it takes about 2 years from the time that the injury occurred. Um, he provided incredible energy. I mean, the work that he and Janmark did, and the funny thing is the Oilers basically had 3 tandems killing penalties, right? They would start with Nugent Hopkins and Derek Ryan. Ryan would take the right side draws, and Nugent would take the left side draws. Those two don't play at the same pace as Janmark and Brown. Janmark and Brown did a great job of gumming up plays in the neutral zone. And then creating turnovers. And then McLeod and Fogle would come out. We know they're both gone. So Janmark and Brown do bring speed. I talked about this, the maybe not as much speed in the bottom six. Janmark is deceptively fast. We know how Brown can skate. And Brown has history with Jeff Jackson and with Chris Knoblauch. I agree. Sonny, I think it wouldn't surprise me this year if Brown scored 15 goals.
Hmm.
Last year at the start of training camp, day one, Vander Kane and Connor Brown were flanking Connor McDavid. Now Connor Brown's on the third line. So I think it is a distinct possibility that he gets an occasional look in the top six.
Which would be amazing. I'm going to ask you a couple Oilers related questions, not the on ice product. One thing I'm very passionate about is just growth of the game. I'm South Asian background and just exposing more people to this amazing game. So the Oilers have put out their schedule for all the theme nights. One that's exciting this year that's new is Dio de los Muertos, the Spanish heritage game. What are your thoughts on those? Like, do you have a favorite? Do you have any
I
memories?
like them all the same equally. How's that, Sonny?
That's a perfect answer. But yeah, like
Is there a celebrate the oil and gas sector with an oil country night? I didn't check to see that yet. I think, you know, um, there's lots of different reasons why communities are successful. I think most people, I do think that you can support socially left causes, but also maintain a strident conservative fiscal background. It's a tricky place. At times, let's just put it this way: the team's called the Oilers. My show's called Oilers Now, and I support oil and gas. But all the other unique events, military, the services, I have great appreciation for those nights. There's a lot of communities that are, embracing the opportunity that exists in Canada and being Canadian in the process. And I always have a great amount of time for that as well.
awesome. Josh.
Yeah, I just want to touch on some still Oilers stuff. Their stuff. You put out a tweet at the Penticton tournament just about maybe a possibility of a second pairing right shot defenseman.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of 3 or 4 names that kind of come to mind in your terms of that?
Nope.
Like where
You can figure that stuff out, Josh. I would say to you that in a perfect world, the Oilers might be able to accrue, about $4 million worth of cap space by the deadline. Maybe 4.5. I wonder whether or not the trade is a distressed asset in another organization where maybe a team's willing to eat a little bit of the salary. So you have to find a partner that can retain, okay? Because of Edmonton's the inevitable ongoing cap challenges. Because I think we know once Leon signed 8 times 14, you would have to thought he talked to Connor, um, which would just be incredible. And I think back, as you know, because you interviewed Cal Nichols.
yeah,
I know how, Cal resuscitated the franchise not once, but twice. But they were taking a pocket knife to a gunfight against those other NHL organizations at that time. And in the end, Cal supported Daryl Cates' vision, which included an downtown entertainment arena complex. And the Oilers are just simply in a different position now than they used to be. They're a have franchise, not a have not. And so they're poised to be able to do things like sign their best players long term.
yeah,
And it started with Taylor Hall and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins getting 7-year deals. The criticism the organization got when they gave the 7-year deal, $6 million per, to RNH back in 2013, it was on this date, by the way. Ryan was coming off a 4-goal season, and lots of other people around the league basically dismissed Edmonton for signing that deal. But it was important for the Oilers to show their fans that we're going to do our best to keep our best players. Like, that's kind of the message. And since the Nugent Hopkins one, then we went in, the lot came out of the 12-13 lockout or whatever, and the new cap took effect, or whatever the new CBA took effect, you could do 8-year deals. And so Draisaitl 8-year deal, McDavid 8-year deal, 8-year deal for Darnell Nurse, 8-year deal for Ryan Nugent Hopkins, you know, so we've now had 2 8-year deals for Leon. These are special, heady times for fans in this market, especially those of us that can remember when the team sold Wayne Gretzky to LA and sold Mark Messier to Rangers. And so, to answer your question, money is going to be tied up in some real top end guys. Josh, off the top of your head, do you know who the top 3 playoff scorers are in the last 3 years?
it's Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, and I believe is it not Matthew Kachuk? No, sorry, no, I got him
They're
wrong.
all others. The top 3 point getters
Yeah,
in the last 3 playoff seasons combined.
Yeah, probably Bush.
Oosh.
Boosh, yeah,
Yeah. So you got Leon done this year, and he's delivering the playoffs. And 2 of the 3 years he was hurt.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then we've got Bouchard and obviously Connor, and they're Connor's 1, Leon's 2, and Evans the 3rd highest scoring player in the league in the playoffs the last 3 years. So
Where does Bouchard come in for you? Like, obviously, you saw Mort Sider sign today for a 7-year deal.
Moritz Seider doesn't have the points,
Yeah, and he
and that
doesn't,
is
and I get that, but would obviously, look at Rasmus Dahlin in Buffalo, and he's $11 million player, and he's not played a playoff game yet in his career.
mm-hmm.
So
Well, Buffalo's in a position where they had to sign their best guys too.
and I get it, but still, at the end of the day, would that be the comparison if you're the agent of Evan Bouchard?
Here's what I would say. With Connor, he's going to get what Connor wants because he's the best player in the world. That's the cost of doing business. The gods smiled upon you. You won a lottery, and he's on it. He's loyal and he's honest, and he doesn't sweat fools. I tell you that. But you're paying him what he wants to be paid ultimately. With Boost, I mean, and don't forget who is the agent for both Connor and for Evan Bouchard.
Yeah, it's
Jeff Jackson.
Jackson.
So,
Judd
but
Goldpaper is taken over now, so
yeah. So yeah, and Dave Gagne has kind of had Evan.
yeah,
Um, so back to your initial question. I look, if it's me, I'm looking for a team to eat some salary on a right shot defender it's got a little bit of term left.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the answer. So you have to go out and figure out who that is.
Goalie tandem. Are you confident in what you have here in net? Obviously, I think Skinner will, has been able to show that he can carry the load. I would say there's probably a really good chance that he's probably the starting goaltender in February at the Four Nations Cup that you hinted at earlier.
You think so?
I think so. I think it's a lock, and I think it's a great thing for him if he is that goaltender to start, because I do think Canada will have a chance of winning that tournament, and the progression.
Well, let's establish Canada should have a chance of winning most tournaments.
Well, they should, but I would say USA is going to put up a fight because they're going to have the upper edge in net. Sweden still will be.
In 10 or 15 years from now, the US is going to be deeper than Canada based upon the amount of kids that are playing.
Yeah.
However, Canada's doing a better job of developing skilled high-end players. Um, so we might not have the same depth that we used to, but we're still pretty good. And we still should have a puncher's chance in every international tournament we're in.
Yeah, and the first round of this draft that just happened was a good indicator. I think there was 18 Canadians drafted in the first round, and
Well, that's a pretty good start, isn't it?
versus 6 Americans. I also thought the draft is pretty interesting too, because there was 125 kids that were drafted that were 6 feet or between 6'2" and 6'5", and then there was 100 and I think it was 130 that were drafted, or no, sorry, there was 30 drafted that were 6'5" or between 6'5" and 6'8". So the growth of, I wonder if GMs are now going more for the size than.
Certainly on defense. I don't think there's any, and you look at what St. Louis did back in 2019. One of the reasons why they won, they had a big rangy defense, right? They moved Petrangelo off the shutdown pairing, put Bouwmeester and Parayko together. That's 6'5", and Jay was 6'4", and Parayko was 6'5". And then Petrangelo's sitting there at 6'4", and he's in one of the other. They had a couple of Edmondson was there.
Carl Gunnarsson was there too.
Like they had a big, rangy, long, angular D. So I think skill.
Yeah.
Right. As long as you got compete with skill, you got to, which is why I think Matt Savoy has a chance for Edmonton. I know, he was not really noticeable in game one of the rookie tournament against Vancouver, but they had three of their top five scorers who'd played 2 years in the American League in that tournament. Like they built a team to dominate that tournament. And then in the game against Calgary, Savoy was he set up 6 of their 9 scoring chances. And against Winnipeg, again, Winnipeg had a better team dressed and he was a little quieter, but the Oilers just couldn't get the puck up the ice to him. You should have seen Savoy today. He made some plays in that first session today. He was pretty good.
And I did see him this summer at the Perry Pern camp, and he did really good in the week that he was there. He was.
Oh yeah, he's going to be good.
He will be good for sure. Talked about Cody Ceci earlier. I know the guys in San Jose are pretty happy to have him there.
He's a great guy.
And can you kind of elaborate a little bit more what you've known about him and seen him over the last several years with the Oilers?
Well, I think
a fair shake in Ottawa. Didn't get a fair shake in Toronto. I know in with the Penguins he did. It seemed like he kind of re-resignated
and he parlayed that into a 4-year deal for himself and got himself, I guess the way I look at it is his last 5 years, he's been a plus player wherever he's gone. He was basically he's 5 or 6 in Toronto, 5 or 6 in Pittsburgh, and a 4 in Edmonton.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a 4 in San Jose. I think Cody, and he was, like I said, he was like +6 to +10 each year. Solid player, solid pro, good guy.
Yeah. Let's move over to the Leafs real quick here. I know Jeff O'Neill was going off on his show yesterday, kind of sick and tired of the Nathan McKinnons and the Zach Bogosians of all coming out into defense of Mitchell Marner. Where are you at with all these players in the
NHL? I would ask you, because I haven't followed it as closely with Marner. I mean, it's clear to me that Brad Treliving is going to build a heavier, more competitive team, and Craig Berube is the taskmaster to drill that in. I would say to Toronto's defense, even though we have a little bit of fun with them once in a while, the reality is they've played in a really tough division with some really good teams, and it's it's been a challenge for them to get through playoffs. They just haven't simply had the playoff success. Like McDavid and Draisaitl are driven at different. I think Austin Matthews is right there with Connor and Leon. I think Marner is a really good playmaking winger. I don't know what you pay him. Do you think it gets done
Well,
in
I
the
just
next month?
like when in the playoffs have we ever watched that a player just slows the game down and and just kind of will stick handle and kind of dead up a button hook all the time, and it doesn't happen. Like the game is a transition game. It's a quicker game in the playoffs. You can't really slow it down.
And a cycle game.
Yeah, and so I just don't see his. I don't see his recipe and whatever. Like hey, I'm a Brad Treliving fan. Huge, like what he did in Calgary. I thought was really good. The 9 years he was there. Um, I'm high on him knowing the game and everything like that. And you know him very well. I've only had one encounter with him in my entire life, but he seems like an absolutely stand up person. But the proof's in the pudding. I'm a Leaf fan. You winning with this kind of roster, just it doesn't work, and it won't work this year again, and they'll be able to see that. Like it'll be another year that they'll be able
Well,
to
first of all, you don't know that it's not going to work
well,
because anything could happen. Did anybody think when the Oilers were 2-9-1 that they would be playing on June the 24th? Anything can happen. You
yeah,
don't know. Like Toronto, like you've got a coach now that's won a Stanley Cup. You
yeah,
got a completely different coach than the
but
guy
they
that
did have one in Mike Babcock who won a Stanley Cup and couldn't get him over the hump though too stuff like
he
and like
he
you
did
and like
he get a chance to watch that group grow and evolve. Now,
I
you
think
can argue
Babs had a
you can
lot of runway with them. He had a couple of playoff runs with them.
yeah,
Same
well,
outcome.
yeah, I mean they lost the opening round. They also played a pretty high caliber team. Um yeah, Berube to me is a little bit different than Babcock at this stage. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I would
Uh
agree with
he
that.
had a longer track, shall we say. Like, he was an assistant for a long time and wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
Mike, there was a time that Mike Babcock was seen as the best head coach. I mean, he was the highest paid coach. What do you get? 8/50? You got 50/8 there?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyhow, we'll see what happens in Toronto this year. I think that I I'm quite bullish on Brad Treliving. I like Brad a lot.
Yeah.
I do think that come playoff time, everybody has to block shots and everybody has to hit. Okay?
Yeah.
And you have to sacrifice. And the top end guys got to dig in deeper. Like that's what I know about Connor and Leon. They are dug in. And the rest of that team, I mean, it helps having like the character of Hyman and Ekholm. Those two guys helped as well, right? Help, the character and the team. And then you got like Nugent Hopkins as a strong support player. So we'll see what happens with the Leafs, but I actually don't have a hot clue. Darren Ferris represents Marner, right?
Correct. Yeah.
He's a hard
His
negotiator.
strategy is to take his players to July 1st in their
He's
last
a hard negotiator,
years, and
as we saw.
yeah. So obviously, I can't see them taking anything less than $12 million, to be honest. So, and
Okay.
if that's the deal, then unfortunately you walk away. And but unless you pay it and you just say, okay, we're just going to keep paying these guys. Like they haven't won, they've won one playoff round, and now they're making more money. So like something's got to give. I know Tavares' number is going to be off the books. He said at day one of camp that he wants to retire as a Leaf. So he wants to resign. That's obviously going to be a cheaper deal, maybe a Patrice Bergeron deal at a $3 million contract. But I'm very bullish on the goaltending because not only just because Elaine Waugh has been on our podcast a lot, but those are two of his clients in Woll and Stolars. So
Well, Elaine would know goaltending because he was a goalie himself.
and he was a goalie for sure. So it will be a fascinating story to watch over there. But we'll see what happens. Let's move over to the Flames real quick here, Stop, before we let you go here. A lot of roster spots up for grabs in Calgary, but how do you see their kind of roster shaping out? I think Mackenzie Weegar said the other day he is not interested in a trade at all. He wants to stay in Calgary, so that's really encouraging to kind of hear, with knowing that there could be a play to be had. I know throughout the summer, even Brendan Escott, congratulations to him and being the host of Inside Sports. He will be joining us on Sunday night, so that episode will be coming out on Monday. But he's talked about Rasmus Anderson. I think you maybe have talked about Rasmus Anderson or more. That's been Brendan Escott. But where do you think happens in Calgary? How does
Well, I do think Rasmus Anderson's a guy to watch, but I don't think he'd be traded to Edmonton.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's got 2 years left in his deal. At the deadline, he'd have a year and a half left. He's a second day right. He's a second pairing right shot D all day. Maybe a first pairing right shot D on an average team, but on a good team, he's a second pairing guy. Uyghur had a real good year last year, right? Like that goes without saying. I've always liked Uyghur. I actually thought, just to show you how much of a rocket scientist I am, I thought the Flames initially won the deal when Kachuk got sent to just because they got. I looked at Huberdeau versus Kachuk and said, well, they had close to the same points, and even if Kachuk out, and I get all the other intangibles Kachuk brings, like he's a hell of a player, but I always liked Uyghur.
Mhm.
And Uyghur was really good last year. So, and they got a number one in the trade as well.
Yeah.
And I think Cole Schwint was the other player. Like I thought Brad did a good job of that trade. It hasn't worked out because Huberdeau, just hasn't been able to get on track there. Um, Calgary, I think goaltending's a big question mark. Like you look at Markstrom, he was a pretty good goalie, struggled a bit against Edmonton, but pretty good goalie. Defensively, they've got Uyghur and they've got Anderson. And they got a bunch of sort of guys 26, 27, 28 kicking around, and then a couple of younger guys.
Do you think Kevin Ball's a player? We're like obviously, a guy that's got.
Well, he's probably going to play the top four there on the left side.
Yeah,
He's a left shot, right?
he is. Yeah, he is. He's a big
Yeah.
body too. So
Yeah. They in the rookie game, one of the differences between the two teams, between Edmonton and Calgary, was Calgary had three right shot D playing in that game. One was a 60-point guy that they drafted. And then the kid from Vancouver that they got in the trade for Lindholm,
yeah,
and then Parekh, it was
yeah,
the other guy who
same
scored
correct. Yeah,
33 goals. Yeah, so I mean, now the thing about all three of those guys is none of them's that big, and I was wondering, well, maybe one, possibly two of them end up on your D as puck movers in a couple of years from now. Does Calgary have any young home run hitters up front? I think certainly not on the level of a McDavid, a Draisaitl, or Nugent Hopkins. They don't have anybody like that.
no,
Will they have somebody like that in a year from now? They might. Like for me, I think most people think Calgary.
I think Connor Zary could be a 30-30 guy. Like I
Well,
think
that would be
big for them.
that's that would be pretty amazing for the Flames if that happens. What I would say to you is I think most experts have Calgary sort of 22 to 32 in the league.
Yeah,
Right? I don't think that's insulting to suggest, given what Calgary has or doesn't have. Um, I don't see them as being an organization that's fully committed to the rebuild. Like I think they're kind of trying to reload a bit. They're at an interesting place because in 3 or 4 years from now, you would think they would be in a new building. Um, so we'll see. I mean, they still have Kadri at center. They still have Backlund, who I love. I
yeah,
love that guy. He plays hard against Edmonton. He's a competitive player. Like when they had Lindholm and back, like it's just, I mean, it's such an awful story what happened to Johnny and Matthew Goodrow.
yeah,
But when that line that year in 21-22, that was the best line in the NHL with Lindholm and Kachuk and Goodrow. And, you know, it. I thought we were going to have like 3 or 4 battles of Alberta between Edmonton and Calgary, and it just ultimately didn't come to be. And now that said, every time Calgary, I think they're only playing 3 times this year. Those are not slam dunk games for Edmonton because when you're playing your rival, throw everything out the window. So maybe the Flames surprise a little. Goaltending's the big question mark. They got Vladar, and then they got an undersized guy in Dustin Wolf, who's had great numbers in the AHL, but he's not facing an NHL shooter. So I think it's going to be a real interesting year to watch the Flames this season.
yeah. And then obviously, you got Vegas, LA, Vancouver in that division, obviously San Jose too. But is there a wild card in terms like, do you think LA will be a lot better? Do you think?
Vegas is the wild card. I think Vegas is a really well run organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I saw Bruce Cassidy say today that he thinks his team will be the best defensive team in the Pacific Division, and he says his defense, his blue line, will be the best defense in the division too.
Well, they play zone defense very well.
Yeah.
Bruce Cassidy. And
What's your thoughts on him as a coach, Stoff? Because Jonathan,
he's won a Stanley Cup.
I agree with that.
He beat the Oilers head to head in 6. So I've got a lot of respect for Bruce Cassidy.
Because I thought it was interesting that Marsha Show was on Cam and Strick podcast with Cam Jansen and Andy Strickland, And he did confirm that, yeah, he heard that guys in Boston didn't like Cassidy. And he also said, Marshall said, guys in Vegas didn't like him either, but he wins. Is
He
that,
wins.
yeah,
I mean, they're a pretty well-run organization. They do a lot of things really well. So, they won the cup. They beat the Oilers fair and square in 6. Edmonton outshot Vegas in games 5 and 6. I mean, you can sit there and do woulda, coulda, shoulda. The Oilers have lost the 3 straight. I mean, they were simply not as good as Colorado in 21-22. Colorado was just the better team, deeper team. And Leon and Darnell were hurt in that series. In 22-23, I thought Edmonton was right there with Vegas. And and then this year against Florida, I just think chasing the entire year, just maybe it's a one bounce game, right? Game sets 2-1 game.
yeah,
If you have that game at home, do you lose that game? So for me, for the Oilers this year, I'm hoping they can win 52 to 55 games because they've played, 3, 2, and then 4. What's that? 9 playoff series in the last 3 years. And they've only had home ice advantage in the opening round. I think their chances increase if they can win the Pacific Division in the regular season. But Vancouver's got a good team and a management team that's going to work to upgrade during the year. Vegas is a well-run team. Is LA better because they don't have Dubois? Is it addition by? I don't know. I don't know what LA is going to do.
Darcy Kemper bring you a net there, right? So
Yeah. Um,
and then
San
Seattle,
Jose, and Anaheim. To me, like I think Anaheim's got some pretty good prospects. Like I do. You look at Carlson and you know McTavish, Gauthier. I'm not a big Zegras guy,
yeah,
but they've got some defensemen like Zellweger that are coming that can move the puck a bit. San Jose, they're gonna have a real good tandem, right, with Celebrini
Will Smith,
and Will Smith. So it's gonna be a battle.
yeah.
And then there's Seattle, and Seattle probably takes a step forward this year, I would think.
Quick thoughts. Obviously, some Twitter reports. Elliot Friedman also put something out or quote tweeted about Ken Holland being spotted in.
I have not heard anything about that. I wish Ken and Brad Holland the best of luck.
Yeah, so it looks like Ken's been hanging around Utah, I believe it was. What's your thoughts on kind of him being around the NHL again? Coming.
It's totally up to him. I'm going to tell you right now, it wouldn't surprise me if multiple teams offered him a role as a senior executive.
Yeah,
Like at the end of the day, Ken Holland took over a 25th place team. The Oilers had the second best record in the Western Conference the last 5 years, and they played the second most amount of playoff series in the last 3 years in the NHL.
yeah,
You could make a strong argument Ken had a lot of success here, and he did. He settled things down. I think in a perfect world, Ken would probably admit he would have wished that Broberg and Holloway, his 2 first-round picks from back-to-back years in 1920, had maybe a more streamlined journey in Edmonton. Like unfortunately for me, it's a little disappointing the Oilers don't have those guys. And all you can do is learn from it.
yeah,
And that's why I'm really excited about where Edmonton has spent some money in research and development because there's no salary cap in R&D. And we had a lot of development guys out in Penticton. And I really like seeing that.
yeah. I agree. Sonny, you want to add anything before we let Staff go here?
No, I'm like I said, I'm grateful for your time and getting some insight and connecting for the first time.
Well, Sonny, you don't have to agree with anything I said. Just remember that. We're all allowed to have our own opinions on a lot of things, especially Josh. You know a lot about Josh.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Staff, always great having you on with us. Thanks for kicking off season 6 of the 2 months.
Have a great run this year, my man.
Yes, we'll be keeping it clean here and keeping it tight and
Keep it clean.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, and then hopefully we'll see you at our event on Monday.
There's a good chance that we might be able to make that happen. Okay.
That'll be really great. All right, Staff. Have a good one. We'll chat
See you,
soon.
man. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Bob Stauffer for joining us, kicking off season 6 of the 2 Months Hockey Podcast. And yeah, just really appreciate the time he gives us throughout the year. Sonny, again, knock it out of the park as you always do in these interviews. So I thought that was really well by you. But your thoughts on kind of the assessment that Staff gave and broke down here?
Yeah, I know. Obviously, like the loss of speed is concerning, and McDavid, the fastest player ever, he'll set the pace, but yeah, Ryan and Perry and that is something to watch for. But the other stuff you talked about with research and development and just how everything's dialed in, I'm sure they're aware of it, and they're going to be quick to change things if needed. I thought it was interesting. I'm more excited now to see Savoy.
Yeah.
After it sounded like he's had like a pretty strong showing in the rookie camp, and it's kind of the perfect scenario for him. Like there's no pressure for him here.
No, there's none.
Whereas in Buffalo, there might have been some lofty expectations. Here, he can come in. He doesn't have to be, a top 6 producer. So we can kind of hone his craft. But yeah, no, I'm just excited. Hopefully another time we'll get a chance to debate when he was talking about 10 to 15 years before Canada like relinquishes control. I was gonna ask him if he's watched any of the brick tournament, and like
Exactly.
you and I have talked about that at length, that
Yeah.
the American kids at 10 years old have been dominant for like almost the last decade. So I think that gap is closing faster than
He
we
might think. Yeah.
think. So but yeah, no, it was just cool. It was cool to get to chat with him.
Yeah, no, it definitely was, and he'll be a key part of being a part of our next season here going forward, and then yeah, having Brandon Escott in to kind of preview his road to stardom in terms of getting his own show. So I think it'll be pretty cool to have Brandon Escott there for that. So it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, so we're looking forward to it. Obviously, yeah, we put out a tweet earlier about our event, the Power Play for Change for a positive team culture and mental health awareness. Tyler Smith will be our keynote speaker. Elliot Freeman from Hockey Night Canada will be hosting it. And then, yeah, we're going to have some special guests joining us along the way. And obviously, you guys heard Stoff will have a chance of probably being there too. So it's shaping up to be pretty good. I know, Sonny, you're going to be taking some parts and take some leads on this. I believe we have a Zoom call next week, but it's been a slow going process the last 3 weeks, but it seems to be getting up into motion now. How excited are you to kind of be a part of an event like this for minor hockey teams here in Edmonton?
Yeah, I think it's just so important. We've talked a lot about the game's evolved, and you're seeing players doing things that you never would have imagined, and record gates and ticket sales. All these things are like climbing, and there's so much to celebrate. But then, unfortunately, there still is kind of like that underbelly that hockey can't seem to shake. So having an event like this where you share some of those stories, you hear some of those stories, and you shine light on what being a good teammate and being a positive teammate and what a difference can make. I think those are the things that will really make the game what it can be. And so I'm glad that you and the group invited me to join it, and or just took the initiative to do something like this. It's one of those things that could be like a life-changing evening for a lot of kids, right? And so that I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I do. I do think it's going to be a lot of fun. And, yeah, we're, with Southside Athletic Club and the Junior Oilers, partnershiping with them and then inviting many other teams to be a part of it. It'll be a lot of fun. And we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast, and there'll be some tough probably moments. There'll be some heavy conversations, but important conversations for a very important night, and for a lot of kids at the U13 to the U18 level. And then, yeah, well, this will be a yearly event, and raising money for Kid Sport Alberta and the Sheldon Kennedy Center of Excellence in Red Deer. So all proceeds of that will be going to those two causes, and we're looking forward to that. So it'll be a 50-50 partnership. Tyler works with Kids Sport Alberta, and obviously our podcast works with the Child Advocacy Center / the Sheldon Kennedy Center of Excellence, and in Red Deer. So it'll be an amazing night, an amazing day for that. So yeah, and this is a tough transition, and kind of wanted to end the pod this way. I know it's unfortunate to end it this way, but we haven't been on since the news of Matthew and Johnny Gaudreau passing away. And with my kind of partnership and our partnership with our podcast the last several years with the Calgary Flames organization, definitely our hearts are with them, and even some of the people we've had on our podcast who've played for the Columbus Blue Jackets organization too over the years, of Jason Chimera, Mike Commodore, Joe Burley, several people we've had on. Thoughts and prayers are out to those both those organizations and the Gaudreau family. Over the last several years, I got to know Johnny's uncle, Jim, and he's a really salt of the earth, down to earth person. Is the only member of the Gaudreau family I've really had any dealings with over the years, and just chatting with him and being there of support, it was all a shock. It still is a shock. There's times throughout the day I'll think I'm just going to wake up and he'll be there on the TV, and you'll hear a funny interview from him. But awful news, and he's definitely going to be missed, and Matthew's definitely going to be missed. And both of them, from everything you've seen and read, they were just great, amazing, loving, caring, supportive people. Just even Johnny being in a restaurant with his wife Meredith, and hearing that when they would walk in and he would go to the bathroom, or she'd go to the bathroom and she'd come walk back, he'd just be yelling out, "There's a supermodel here, there's a supermodel here." So just a funny, quirky personality. And he got more jacked up for a softball game home run than maybe scoring a goal in the NHL. And then I thought it was a pretty nice story that there's a young kid out in New Jersey, Philadelphia area. The last name was Scuderi, and he was a 15-year-old kid and made a nice pass to Johnny, and Johnny scored. And Johnny didn't think that kid was going to make a pass. They were playing in a 2-on-2 game this off season, and just giving a lot of people love and respect, and Uber drivers and skip the dishes drivers, but and even his brother, Matthew, just being a very loving, caring, person, and yeah, it's tough, isn't it, Sonny?
Yeah, everything about it was unbelievable, and like a nightmare scenario. Cheered against them for a lot of years. Obviously, the Flames are, when you're an Oilers fan, they're your arch rival. But watching him and what he could do on the ice was incredible. And obviously, everyone knows I have strong connections to the Brick tournament. We've seen the videos of him as a little 10-year-old Boston Iceman, and doing kind of the same things at that point that he was doing in the NHL. And and his brother, and all the things that he was on the cusp of accomplishing. And the tragedy is only made worse by it being a drinking and driving incident. And for me, there's never an excuse for it. And those moments are the nightmare scenarios that people should think about before they decide to do something so stupid, right? He's shattered families, robbed people of their parents, and a whole community of people that they loved. And like I said, it's even though he was a rival, like I said, when I first saw the official news, your stomach just sinks, and there's nothing else you can really say about it.
No, it's awful, and it's going to be a long road, and and obviously guys like Hayes and Monahan that were really close to him. Thinking of those guys, and yeah, it's tough. It's going to be a tough season this year, and thinking of him, and yeah, it's just it's not the way life should be, but um, it is gives you these perspectives and these lessons and these of just trying to enjoy every moment, and a lesson of enjoying every moment of life, because you just never know when things could happen, and whenever so just yeah, it's just tough. It's it's hard because watching that funeral, and obviously both their wives are pregnant with future family members and their kids. It's obviously it's hard, but they'll have the full support of the hockey community. But just I thought those eulogies were very beautiful for both Johnny and Matthew. So we'll finish up this episode on that note. I know it's sad, but we just wanted to pay our respects. It's been the first time we've been on since this broke, and yeah, we will be thinking of them and missing them, and yeah, I agree, Sonny, with you. There's so many different ways to get home now if you're in a situation of drinking. And so, for us, hey, we might not know you guys, but send us a DM on any of our accounts. I'll answer those, and I'll come pick anyone up at any time of the day, at any moment. There's always someone going to be there for you, and we're I'll happy do that to anyone, to just make sure everyone gets home safe and sound. So we love you guys. We love our listeners. We love our fans. And thanks for joining us for another season. And we're looking forward to some new interviews and some new guests and some great conversations. And Sonny, it's been a pleasure. And I'm so thankful that you are a part of this journey for this season and seasons to be on. So thank you.
See you. Thanks, Josh.